gorgeous actor. Today we're looking at I Pray You Tarry. And if you're new to my channel, what we're going to do here is we're going to walk through the whole monologue together so you feel really clear about what everything means, you're not misinterpreting anything. And I'm going to give you some tips for Shakespeare technique, things that you can choose to make it your own so you can stand out, not just because you're brilliant at Shakespeare, but because you made unique choices that worked for you, which of course is what you want. If you haven't met me before, I'm Sarah Guo. I'm your new Shakespeare coach. Let's jump in. Okay, so the first thing I notice is that this is right at the start of a scene. And one of the things that you should always be thinking about when a monologue is right at the start of a scene is that it usually comes in with a lot of energy. Most of the time with Shakespeare practice, they were often picking up on the heels, kind of passing the baton of energy from one scene to the next, which means quite often there's movement into the start of the scene. Now, even if you're doing it for a self-tape, something that can be useful to do when you're practicing it is to actually move at the start. Like perhaps you're trying to get in his way and be like, hey, slow down. It gives you so much energy and it's going to give you an instant access to that urgency and that kind of anxiety that she's got going on there. So that's your first tip already, and we haven't even talked about what anything means yet. Probably you're going to understand a lot of this stuff. A lot of it's close to modern language or stuff that you might have heard before. But one of the things I recommend you do is still write it out in your own words. So a sentence like, I pray you tarry, you could kind of translate that in different ways, right? So you could say, I beg you wait. Or you could say, please just slow down, right? So, and they have different feelings. When you translate for yourself, when you go through the process yourself, it really helps personalize it and it makes it so much easier to act when you've made those choices as you go through. Pause a day or two before you hazard. You probably get in that part from the word hazard, which just means guess in this case. So she's like, wait a couple of days before you guess. Now, I'm guessing that you already know a little bit about the casket situation, so I'm not going to go into that. But if you don't, I'll link a couple of videos in the description so you can do a little bit of research about the events of the play and all that. But just so we don't kind of go down that massive road, he has to choose a casket to be able to marry her. She wants him to get it right, but she's not allowed to tell him which is the right one. For in choosing wrong, I lose your company. If he chooses the wrong one, he has to leave completely. And he also has to swear off getting married at all, which is, it's a tough choice. Therefore, forbear a while. She means so just wait a bit. And one of the things I want you to notice as we go through here is how much she's kind of talking around the subject, because there's two things that she doesn't want to tell him. Firstly, she can't tell him about the caskets. She's promised her dad that she wouldn't. That was the deal. So she's kind of, could I give him a hint maybe? But she's also talking around how she feels. She doesn't want to directly tell him that she loves him, even though she really does already. She's fallen in love with him, but she doesn't want to admit it yet. And what we're going to see as she goes through is that she starts off kind of avoiding it, and then she becomes very direct about it. So notice as we go through. Here we go. There's something tells me, but it is not love. I would not lose you. She's going here, I've got a feeling, but the feeling's not love. That I don't want to lose you, right? So notice how even as I start to put it into my own words, I feel like I'm interrupting myself. And it looks like she's kind of, that's how it feels. That's how this monologue rolls. And actually, the more that you lean into that interrupting myself thing, the funnier it gets. This is a choice that I want you to make depending on your audition or exam or showcase situation. How funny do I want this to be? Is this kind of hilarious, like tripping over the tongue stuff? Or is it more like a heartfelt awkwardness, right? And you can choose. There's not a right or wrong here. It's your version of Portia. Okay, and you know yourself, hate counsels not in such equality. So she's trying to give him the hint there that, I don't love you, but I don't hate you because you will know that somebody that hates someone else would never give advice in such a way, so be so helpful. Counsel just being like advice. So hate wouldn't give this kind of good advice of like, slow down because I want to hang out with you. So she's giving him these kind of non-answers. I don't love you, but I don't hate you, hoping that he's going to pick up the hint. But then she says, but lest you should not understand me well. And this moment, right, she's like, just in case you're not getting it. To me, this is a great moment to be thinking about how Bassanio is reacting in your version. If you're working on it by yourself, you want to be imagining Bassanio being like, what? You know, or maybe he's just kind of laughing at you and you're like, I have to be clear here. Just in case you don't understand me. Again, she's just kind of interrupting herself. Now she knows she needs to clarify. And here she interrupts herself again. And yet a maiden hath no tongue but thought. What she's saying here, and it feels very of the time, is women or young women aren't really able to speak for themselves. All they have really is everything that they're thinking. And now she finally gets direct about it. I would detain you here some month or two before you venture for me. This cracks me up. Notice how at the beginning she's like, pause a day or two, and then she's like, a month or two. That escalated quickly. So that's something you could maybe make something of, just noticing for yourself and maybe bringing out in the voice the difference between a day or two and a month or two. How do you say it? You're like, no, you know what? Stuff a couple of days. I want you to hang around for a couple of months. Can we do that? Let's make it happen. Where do we get to? The next bit kind of spills out of her. I could teach you how to choose right, but then I am forsworn. Notice how the sentence starts in the middle of the verse line. When that happens, when you see a full stop or period in the middle of a line like that, it often means that the idea or the thought is kind of rushing out of them. It's following quickly on the heels of what they've just said. That's why Shakespeare kind of put it on that one line. It's not just because he didn't quite have enough syllables yet. It's on purpose, right? So play around with that sense of like, oh, I could teach you. I could do this. I could actually just tell you. I could tell you what the answer is. But then I am forsworn means that, but then I'm a promise breaker. I'm breaking a very sincere, a very important promise to my dad. And in that moment, she realized, I can't do that. So will I never be. So may you miss me. So when she says, so will I never be, she means I'll never be that person that breaks that oath. I think she cared about her dad, and also think she takes it seriously, and she considers it a sin to break that promise. And the reason that's important is because she talks about it in a second. And then when she says, so may you miss me, she's like, because I won't tell you the answer, you might not guess right. But if you do miss me, if you don't guess right, you'll make me wish a sin that I had been forsworn. If you stuff this up, I'll wish that I told you. And that is a sin, and I'm not okay with it. So you can see, like, I'm getting carried away here, but like, I want you to get to that state that this is a serious decision for her about whether she might actually tell him. And she's trying to figure it out in the moment. She says later on that she's also just kind of talking and stalling, but I want you to recognize that she's not just stalling, she's also kind of figuring it out for herself. It's really important in Shakespeare that you have this sense of immediacy. Like, they haven't quite figured out what to do. They're figuring it out as they speak. They're verbal processes, pretty much, all of Shakespeare's characters. So you got to have a sense of it. She's actually trying to figure it out, and she's getting tied up in knots about it. And again, that could be hilarious, or it could be quite heartbreaking. So you choose. Then she says, beshrew your eyes. That's such a, man, it's so old-fashioned. Beshrew, it's kind of like, damn your eyes. You're so beautiful and you've looked into me, right? So that's the next bit that she says. And notice this beshrew your eyes also flows on the line. So that means it's spilling out of her. Beshrew your eyes, they have o'erlooked me and divided me. So not just, damn your eyes are so pretty, but also I see in your eyes that you are looking into me and tearing me apart. You're tearing me apart, Lisa. You'll notice it will say O''ER looked. That is short for, it's like contracted, overlooked. Please don't make it o'er. When Shakespeare puts a little apostrophe like that, it's to make it fit the rhythm. So he's trying to make it squish. Or looked. Now she's really starting to be pretty open with him. She's not hiding it anymore. One half of me is yours, the other half yours. my own, I would say, but if mine, then yours. And so all yours. So basically she's saying, I wish I could say that this other half belonged to me and then one half belongs to you, but actually I'm giving my whole self to you. There is a little reference there that I think Elizabethan audiences would have picked up on, which is when you marry someone, you become one with them. Sorry, Spice Girls just went into my head. So anyway, they would have understood this idea of marriage being this joining of souls. So when she's talking in that way, it's at marriage level. I'm ready to give my whole self to you. And what that means is actually a really big deal, because it does mean that she's giving her heart, but there also are these kind of legal implications of she's ready to give her whole fortune also away to him. She has inherited a lot, and that's why everybody's coming and lining up for her. I think that's also why she's so hesitant. This actually happens a lot in Shakespeare, where women don't want to directly say how they feel. What Shakespeare reflected really well was this fear that I think he saw in women, that women were afraid to give themselves fully because it was risky for them. If you marry the wrong guy and then, things fall apart, you're out on the street. You have no money left. Like, they didn't have any rights. So this is actually a big deal when women confess love and decide that they're ready to be married. So it would have been a scary thing for her. And she's not even in charge of that at this moment. It's a futile confession. I love you. I would give everything to you, except I don't even get to do that. I don't even get to choose. Then she runs straight on again. Oh, these naughty times put bars between the owners and their rights. I think we need to just acknowledge the word naughty sticks out in a bit of a weird way for modern audiences. In those days, and particularly in the way that Shakespeare used it, he means kind of like wicked. She's thinking about that sinfulness, right? That something's gone wrong in the world. There's an unnatural thing that's happening here, in that love can't just be love. It's really messed up. And so I encourage you, when you put it into your own words, when you get to the word naughty, use a word that's really strong. Like, these messed up times. I would go even stronger than that, but I'm not going to do it on video. These messed up times are putting bars, putting restraints or hurdles in the way of what we should actually possess. And so, though yours, not yours. She's going back to, even though I would give all of myself to you, I can't. Prove it so. Let fortune go to hell for it, not I. In this case, fortune, sometimes it's actually capitalized in the text, so it's kind of a personification, like the goddess of fortune. Sometimes it's actually useful to think about it more like God or the powers that be. Like, you, the person that is in charge of all this, should suffer for this, not me. It's out of my hands. So that's what it all kind of boils down to underneath this, is that it's the fault of some other being. So in this moment, she's kind of handing it over. And this is a big moment. This is possibly the climax of the monologue, where she's said all she could say. And she's like, well, I can't do anything about it. So there. So it's on you and fortune and everybody else, but bah! Right? So it should boil to a point. And always make sure that your monologues are building and they boil to a point. They always do. And so now that she's said that and she's boiled to a point, you get this sense of conclusion. I speak too long. I've been going on for too long here. But 'tis to appease the time, which means like kind of slowing down the flow of time, to eke it and draw it out. So eke being kind of like prolonging it, and draw it out in length to stay you from election, to stop you from choosing. One of the biggest challenges with this monologue is that it can feel like it's running away from you. It's really common that people end up rambling or rushing through this monologue because of that feeling that she's interrupting herself, because of those thoughts that are flowing on. And that's really tricky to manage. So one of the things that you can do is practice doing the really fast version where you just like ramble, and then also try a really slow version of it where you're really measuring out the thoughts. Imagine that Bassanio is just being super patient with you and you're just letting all the feelings out nice and slowly, maybe even the sadder version of it versus the fast, frenetic comedic version of it. And often what happens when we try those extremes is that we find a nice middle ground. Another wonderful thing that's very helpful is to have a look at different monologues from the same character, because it really gives you an insight into how they talk, how they make decisions, and what's on their mind, even in the lead up to all this, what they've been through. So I'm going to link a couple of Portia's other monologues on screen so you can take a look at those. Even just reading them out loud is really helpful too. Lots of love and luck for your audition, and see you in the next video.